So part of the network is to link with other networks, but also we're very conscious that our own UK-ICN network is funded to facilitate travels and meetings and not necessarily provide money for research. So part of what we've been trying to do is also capture funders so we can put our network together with research funding. And you've heard some of the talks today where we've successfully been able to do that. So what I would like to do first of all is introduce Dylan from ISIDORE to tell us about a pan-European network that really has very neat research opportunities for us as bench scientists to fit into in the idea of a research hotel and so on. So Dylan, thank you very much for coming, and over to you.
So, hi everyone, I hope you hear me well. Thanks Julian, thanks to the UK-ICN network for the invitation. My name is Dylan and I am the External Affairs and Communication Officer at ISIDORE and ERINA. And I'm here today to briefly introduce you to both the ISIDORE project and before that, a short introduction of the ERINA, a research infrastructure. So, ERINA is a research infrastructure, a non-profit international association gathering 10 members that you can see on that map highlighted in dark purple. That's where our members are located and where we have our facilities. We are dedicated to the study of highly pathogenic agents, and our mission are to increase, to put it simply, understanding of diseases, preclinical development and assessment of medical countermeasures. As I said, our priority pathogens are what we call the RG4 pathogens. So you have a list here from Ebola and Marburg viruses to Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever, but also Lassa virus and SARS-CoV-2 virus. And thanks to our members, we are able to conduct in remote research in biosafety level 3 and level 4 facilities. So that's enough of ERINA, and now I will try to give you an introduction of the ISIDORE project. I'm gonna be brief, yet give you everything you need to know about it. So the ISIDORE project has been gathered and is being coordinated by ERINA. It was launched earlier this year in response to the COVID-19 pandemic to increase Europe's capacity to respond to and prepare for pandemics. So what we've done is that we have gathered a large consortium actually of research infrastructure and partners, more than 150 partners in more than 30 countries to provide more than 300 services. I hope you will forgive me, but I haven't memorized all of the services, unfortunately. I will work on that for the next presentation, trust me. But our project has received a 20 million euro funding from the European Commission to provide free of charge access to researchers to boost their project. So I will try to present you how you can do that and what are the scope of our action. So to put it simply, the scope of action is preparedness and responsiveness to pandemics. We have gathered research infrastructures, as I said, that provide services to the scientific communities to conduct research and foster innovation through what we call a transnational access. Some of you might be familiar with these calls, or some of you might not be familiar, so I will give you a short introduction later on. As you can see, we also include a One Health approach. That's because we think that in today's world we need to address all of the pathway if we want to increase research and preparedness for future pandemics. So to do so, we work with global health authorities. They are present in our strategic advisory boards. And we also work with other projects such as the UK-ICN, but also the BiCovid project to improve our capacities as a whole. So basically with the BiCovid project, for instance, we ensure good data management to provide comprehensive open data on COVID-19 because we have found that it helps achieving our goals, which are once again to increase preparedness and by putting in common all the knowledge we have about COVID-19 and other pathogens we are studying. But let's have a look now about the ISIDORe scientific concepts together. So as you can see here, we have different colored dots. They represent the services we provide, basically. And from left to right, you can see that we are able to cover the whole pathway of research and development from the initial outbreak to the moment where the disease is under control and where we increase preparedness for future outbreaks. So this diagram essentially demonstrates that we offer the capacity to cover the entire pathway once again. And our aim is to increase well, preparedness in peacetime, in peaceful time, but also, of course, to respond in time of crisis. And that's what we've done earlier this year, shortly after the launch of the project, with the monkeypox outbreak, for instance, that I will also present you. But to address all of this research and development pathway, we, of course, need some support. And to do so, we have gathered one of the largest consortium ever. As I said, more than 150 partners are involved. And they are actually in the project thanks to 17 core partners. These are the 17 core partners, 17 research infrastructures that are able to cover this pathway. So from most fundamental science to clinical trials and even to social sciences. So you might be familiar with some of the key partners of the ISIDORe project, ERINA, which provides, for instance, expertise on preclinical research on highly pathogenic agents. Regarding social sciences, we have SORNA Global, represented by the Institut Pasteur, while, for instance, biobanking is provided by Bibi Marai Eric. And the expertise of these core consortium partners translates into our catalog of services, which is here. So as you can see, we have a catalog of services divided into 9 broad sections, and these are the services we provide to the scientific communities. So in these different categories, once again, you have here the name of the categories, and if you go on the website and if you browse the website, which I strongly encourage you to do, and as we're recording this session, I can say that I've passed on the message, so my colleagues can check on it. But more seriously, once again, if you want to get into details, for example, about the service we provide in the vaccine development or clinical samples, that's where you will find all the services and further details. So now I shall mention a bit about the transnational access model. So some of you are familiar, I mean, I assume that most of you are familiar with the usual funding model, where you apply for a grant and the grant is directly going to the researcher and then you can pay for your research. With the transnational access, or TNA, it's a bit different. It's actually the other way around. So you apply through the calls of proposal we have developed for access to a service that you need to boost your research, but you didn't have a local access to. And if your project is selected, then you actually get direct access to these facilities. You don't get the money directly. The money goes to the research infrastructures to pay for the research manipulations and so on that will be performed there. So under TNA, basically, we provide free of charge access to services and facilities. You might be wondering how this works, so I will give you a little presentation of the operation mode of the ISIDORe project. Basically, ISIDORe designs and launches calls for proposals, and then researcher applies for the services if they find one of the call to be of interest for their research. I will introduce you the calls a bit later, but for instance, let's mention SARS-CoV-2 call. You need to boost your research, you don't have access to a specific service in your country, in your facility, so what you're going to do is to apply to the call for proposal. Then This application will be evaluated by independent reviewers based on scientific merit. You will then be selected and granted access to the facilities. It's important to understand, though, that it might be in remote access, so you might not be able to perform in person the manipulation you would like to do. So this depends basically on the service providers. I can't name them all right now, but it can be explained as they have all different reasons. But in the case of ERINA, for example, I can tell you that it would require quite a lot of trainings to operate in a BSL-4 environment, and it would not really make sense to train scientists to make a few manipulations in a BSL-4 laboratory, for instance, in Sweden or in France, and then go back in his own lab. So that's why we offer remote access. Others, on the other hand, are providing in-person access, but in any case, and this is very important to understand, you remain the owner of the results. In no case we are sharing the ownership of any of the results. So it might be a bit weird, of course, at first to think that you might not perform yourself the research, but in the end, it still goes, all the credit goes to you, and you are the one actually deciding how to implement the process and to do the manipulation, even though it's a partner facilities that will help you through the process. Now that I mentioned the calls for proposal, we will have a little more information about it. So basically, I will try to explain you how we design the calls, how we define them, and what are the current calls and the next ones. First, I need to quickly introduce you to the Strategic Advisory Board. We have gathered a range of expertise and authorities to reflect all the expertise we provide, but also to make sure that we are aligned with the Global Health Authority's priorities and concern when it comes to designing the calls and when it comes to answering to current threats. So as you can see, we have gathered the main actors of funding and surveillances, for instance, and we are working with them to design our calls and to implement them. Once again, to be sure that we are aligned with the global health priorities. So this typically translates into the calls we have opened. Right now we have 2 calls open. So the first one is the SARS-CoV-2 call. It was launched in July, beginning of July 2022. It will remain open as long as funding remains available. So I can't tell you how long fundings will remain available. Unfortunately, since July, I can tell you that we received approximately 100 applications, and 30 of them are being implemented as we speak now. Why 30 only? Just because we receive application on a daily basis, and it takes a bit of time to review, of course, all of these applications. So it's not that we are particularly very strict when we are selecting the calls. Another call that might be of interest for some of you is a monkeypox call. So we actually launched 2 calls for monkeypox. The first one was an emergency call in response to the Global Health Authorities concerned earlier this summer. It was open from mid-July until end of August. We received approximately 30 applications. 17 are being implemented right now. And backed by popular demands, we decided to open a new call for monkeypox. You can see that pre-application are open until November 29th. And then you still have time to make a full application if you're interested. But if you need research support for monkeypox, I encourage you to browse the catalog of services, and there you will see what are the services we offer and how we can help you. Also, it's important to understand that if you do not find the appropriate services on the catalog of services, do not freak out. You can still reach out because we are frequently updating this catalog of services, and sometimes we are taking out some services because they are not very popular, but they are still available. And sometimes some services are planned to be implemented in the near future, but not yet. So still you should contact us, and we will be able to help you. So that's why I encourage you once again, for the record, to browse the catalog of services. And as you can see, we are also working on new calls that are opening soon, and they are part of our preparedness program. So this preparedness program we have developed by using the WHO R&D blueprint as our main reference, actually, to determine the pathogens to be investigated to improving global preparedness. However, of course, the pathogens we have included in this preparedness program go beyond the WHO list. We have included, for instance, infectious agents identified as significant threat to public health and any new infectious threats. So let's have a look at those preparedness calls. You can see that we have 4 calls in 4 categories. One might be more interesting for you. It's the second one, respiratory pathogen. It includes SARS-CoV-2, but SARS-CoV in general, and zoonotic coronaviruses. You can also, as you may have guessed, get support for SARS-CoV-3 research under the Disease X call. These calls will be available, will be launched officially next Monday. So, well, I am ashamed to tell you not to browse the website if you're looking now for further details about these specific calls. Being with you today means I can't upload right now the information, but I'm working on it, trust me. And by Monday you will get all the information. But actually, you might still want to have a look at the website, because if you have a look at the website, you will see that the calls are divided by scientific sections. So for this preparedness program, we have 7 scientific sections divided from surveillance and epidemic risk management to vector biology and vector control through therapeutics and diagnosis, for instance. And this division, these sections are already implemented for the SARS-CoV-2 call and for the monkeypox call. So it might give you an idea already of how we work and how we have divided the sections. So maybe after all, you should browse the website, just saying. So this is actually how the website looks like. So it's pretty straightforward. Really, you shouldn't have any issue finding the information you're looking for. But if you have, you can contact us at any time. That shouldn't be a problem. As you have understood by now, our aim is to serve the scientific communities by providing free of charge access to services and facilities. And overall, our strategic scientific program and the extent of the capacities we have gathered are meant to help advance our knowledge, once again, on epidemic and pandemic-prone pathogens. We also aim at developing medical, veterinary, vector-borne countermeasures, but also to increase, implement, and develop behavioral, socio-economical, and environmental measures to prepare for future outbreaks. We also, it's important to stress, I mentioned it a bit earlier, but we really favor open science data sharing to help us reach a wider objective, once again, of increasing the capacity of the European region as a whole. And I say this on purpose because being in the UK, which is not anymore a European Union member, you are still, of course, eligible to get support from the European Union programs, including the ISIDORe program. Right now, Belarusian and Russian entities are banned from seeking support. I mean, this doesn't come as a surprise. But, well, yeah, the UK can still apply, so please, feel free. This is because actually our overreaching ambition is, as you can see, to improve preparedness and responsiveness to infectious threats by supporting excellence science and research. That being said, before the conclusion and to maybe answer some of your questions, if I can, I would like to invite you to join our next webinar, information webinar on November 29th. It's a free event. You just need to register. How do you register? Well, you go to the website and you browse the website once again. There you will get to meet actually the scientific managers of the ISIDORe program. They will be able to answer all of your specific scientist questions. I also invite you, if you want to sign up for the newsletter and follow us on social networks. I promise I do not spam with the newsletter, trust me, I hate that myself, but it's probably the best way to learn about the opening of the new calls and the opportunity to get support from the ISIDORE program. So that's it for me, and if you have any question, I'll do my best.
Thank you very much, Dylan. It's nice to know that we're still considered part of the European family now and again. So I'd like to open up Dylan's presentation up for questions. I might just start by, first of all, asking Dylan, you know, in the UK, we do have quite a lot of facilities. Mm-hmm. And you were saying that if we didn't have access, didn't have those facilities, we could come to ISIDORE. Can we come to ISIDORE even if we've got the facilities in the UK, or?
Yeah, well, so technically you cannot,
right.
For a very simple reason. It's because most of the time there are national fundings open for national research projects. However, of course, again, in order to facilitate research programs, we are open to application even if some of the facilities are accessible in your countries. So that should not refrain you from applying. Some of the universities in the UK and facilities in the UK are actually part of the ISIDORE program. I can name the Pirbright Institute, for instance, the Glasgow and Edinburgh universities. But even though they have their own facilities, if you want, you can still apply. And you could get access to this facility through the ISIDORE program. Yes.
Great. And Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, I think part of our relationship between us and ISIDORE is to facilitate networking so that you can apply for ISIDORE funding.
Yes, definitely.
So anyone have any questions for Dylan at the back there?
So you can actually apply to facilities through ISIDORE, even in the UK, if you still don't have access to. You can also, if you're a member, if you're one of the 154 partners of the project, you can still apply to the project. It's important. So a researcher at the University of Glasgow can still seek support. And we are trying to be not too restrictive with the transnational access. Even though the main idea, of course, is to provide transnational access. So what we do most of the time is we try to find a way around, and if you have access, for instance, to facilities in the UK, well, we could give you access to a facility nearby. So, well, nearby means on European continents, but still it might be in Belgium, France, or wherever else.
Okay, and thank you. I believe there was a question behind. All right.
Perfect.
Okay, any further questions for Dylan?
Yeah, I have a question about the funding scheme. Is that the EU full cost model, or is it
Yes, it is the EU cost model.
Okay, thank you very much, Dylan, for coming along, and we look forward to working with you closely in the future to try and get access to this. It sounds a really great opportunity.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, talking of, oh, sorry. I'm now full up with hands. Okay, Valeria, sorry, I'll pass this to you. So one of the objectives of our network is obviously to link in with other networks so you can multiply information and collaborations and apply for funding, which I guess for most of us is the name of the game, and seeing what the future holds. So it's a great pleasure to introduce and welcome Valeria to our meeting from from start IDAZ, which is probably the network of networks for research and development. So thank you, Valeria, for coming over.
Hello. Yeah, thank you very much, actually, for inviting IDAZ here today. And yes, we are a network that networks. It is exactly what we do. And I'm here today to talk a little bit of what we do in IDAZ IRC, and also to introduce you a little bit about the activities that we do for gap analysis and roadmaps for future research on animal coronaviruses. As I said, I'm Valeria Mariano. I work as a research coordinator in the Secretariat of IDAZ IRC, and I am based at the World Organization for Animal Health, formerly known as OIE. So, IDAZ IRC is the International Research Consortium on Animal Health. It's a network of funders and program owners for animal health. And the aim is to improve coordination of research activities on the major infectious disease of livestock and zoonosis to speed up the development of control methods. As you can see from this slide, in dark blue, you can have a look at which are the member countries of IDAZ IRC. And in these countries are located our 28 partners. In the light blue instead, you can see other countries, which are the associated countries, are the countries that didn't yet sign the Memorandum of Understanding. So they didn't commit yet to commit to put at least $10 million over a 5 years period on the agreed priorities, but still they participate in our regional networks. So if we count only the 28 partners, IDAZ is able to move at least $2.5 billion over a 5 year period. Here you can see which are the partners. Among them, you can see also BBSRC and DEFRA, which are the founders of your network. And let me provide you a little bit of background of IDAZ. IDAZ is born as a global network of research funders and program owners under the FP7 program of the European Commission in 2011. This project ended in 2015 after also a foresight exercise to identify research priorities. And after this project, several partners decide actually to sign a memorandum of understanding and keep working together in an international research consortium. As I said before, they commit at least $10 million over a period of 5 years, but it's also possible to have group funding commitments. So also smaller funders can come together probably in regional network and join the IDAZ IRC. What they need to, this funder to agree to deliver it over targets, over the priority, agree to coordinate and align funding to deliver these targets, and agree to share research as much as possible without jeopardizing the intellectual property right. The overall objective is to coordinate research at international level, to contribute to new and improved animal health strategies for at least 30 priority disease, infectious, and issues. This to deliver candidate vaccine, diagnostics, therapeutics, or any other kind of key scientific information that can support disease control. So actually, what IDAZ does is promote working internationally all along the research pipeline. So they are all important: basic research, translational research, applied research, technology transfer, because they are all important to produce countermeasure for disease. So diagnostics, vaccine, therapeutic, and scientific information. These slides show a little bit how we work, which is our governance structure. We said before we have 28 partners, and these 28 partners can sit in the executive committee, which is the governing body of our international research consortium, where the decisions are taken. And we have also 4 regional networks, where there is no necessity to be partner to participate in these activities. They meet every 6 months in order to discuss which are the regional priorities that can be different around the world, of course, and to find also a way to collaborate and to reach this, their aim. The executive committee is supported by a scientific committee, which has got 16 independent experts. And the scientific committee provides also support to the working group. And here you can see the list of the working group that we have. And among these, of course, you can see here in red, the coronavirus is one. The secretariat instead is called CIRCA. It's a project which is funded by the European Commission. We just received other 4.5 years funding. I am working in the secretariat for the World Organization for Animal Health, but actually other partners are CREAVET, which is currently the leader of the new secretariat. Then there is DEFRA, CABI, and IDAZ. And we provide support to the executive committee, scientific committee, and the different working group. How we work? As I said before, in the previous IDAZ, when it was a global network project of the European Commission, there was an horizon scanning that was done through a complete foresight study that went on for several years, actually, to identify priorities. Of course, we keep going and doing horizon scanning from time to time to update our priorities. And over these priorities, we establish working group. And when possible, of course, we engage with alliances whenever they already exist in the field. So, for example, the GARA or other. This working group, they are active in identifying research gaps on particular thematic through workshop mainly, and utilizing, of course, all the knowledge available, which can be found in report, but also in database. For example, in the database of DISCON tools. Then research roadmaps are defined, and I will talk about it later. And mainly, this is done through workshop. After this, we start map ongoing research to get to know what is going on in different fields through landscape scanning and also relating to other database or network, and research themselves can provide this information. Once we identify the research gaps and research priorities, we provide this information to research program owners, which are actually our executive committee, and they can open then new calls for project. Let's go into the business of the coronaviruses. What currently does a working group in the IDAZ IRC? The aim of the working group is to conduct research gap analysis, draft research roadmaps, and identify research priorities. The composition of the working group is subject matter expert around the globe. So usually the experts are nominated by the scientific committee, but as I said before, whenever there are networks that are already available, we try to engage with this network, so to avoid duplication of effort. And for example, as we did with GARA, with GrabDB, with GFRA, the important is, of course, that in this network, there are representatives of several networks, and that there is a group balance as much as possible among regions around the world, and also about gender. And the UK-ICN, of course, is an international research network, is the international research network on coronaviruses. So, of course, it will be a pleasure for us to work with you. And this is a great opportunity for you to give voice to coronavirus research need and provide recommendation to the funders arena. How? Producing research roadmaps. What are research roadmaps? They are development pathways of the significant steps that have to be taken and problems that have to be solved based on the gap identified by the different working group. On our website, you can find 19 roadmaps available. They are all following the same pattern regarding disease control strategy, disease diagnostic test, therapeutics, and candidate vaccine. And then we applied this to different diseases. This is an example of a generic candidate vaccine development roadmap. As you can see on the right, am I right? Right, yes. There is the final aim, which is to develop vaccine. But then going backward, you can find all the different steps for which we need to find research priorities. So for having naturally attenuated candidate vaccine or inactivated vaccine, we need first to challenge the model. We need to know first host-pathogen interaction. We need to know pathogen genome, and so on. And also the roadmap shows the different links among the different steps. And different roadmaps are also linked among them, because what we want to achieve at the end is to have control strategies for the disease. But of course, the roadmap for control strategies, it's of course linked with vaccine, therapeutic, and diagnostics roadmap. All this roadmap has been developed through a peer-reviewed method that has been published on transboundary and emerging disease. And what is really important for this roadmap, beside the fact that they are a participatory approach for researchers to work together over priority in their teams, is what is actually behind the box in the roadmap. So behind each box that we saw before, there are lead summaries, and in the lead summaries, there are collected this information. So first of all, the research question, what are we trying to achieve and why, but also the challenges. Why hasn't the research question been resolved previously? The different solution routes, which are actually what approach we need to undertake to address the research question. So actually the list of possible projects that we can develop. Dependency, what lead is this dependent on? Of course, there could be other things that we need to resolve before arriving there. And then the list of projects. So what is currently going on? On our website, we collect research projects. We have a database, and we welcome everybody to introduce their own project. Of course, this is useful to produce research roadmap, as I was saying, but it's also a possibility to increase the visibility of your project. So I invite you all to go on the website and introduce your project. And when we have collected the different projects and we have worked on the challenges, so we know which are the challenges in the different sector, then of course we can understand the status of the challenge and the importance of the different challenges. And this could help us to provide recommendation on research, and this recommendation will be given after, of course, the validation of the scientific committee, will be provided to the IDAZ Executive Committee that I told you, it's a network of research funder and program owner. So if we are here today, it's because all of us believe that research is important, and it is important to drive the change of the future in our sector. So having the possibility to provide recommendation of which is gonna be the research of the future, of course, give you lots of power. This means that the future is in your hand. Please use it wisely. And with this, I thank you very much for your attention and open to question.
Thank you very much, Valeria. It's nice to see actually how, as a basic scientist, you can begin to influence funding priorities that you can then apply for. So I will open the floor to...
It's a great opportunity, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So anyone, any questions on STAR IDAZ and behind? I think also Sharon, you want to make some comments as well. So maybe Sharon, do you want to...
I just thought if anybody had any questions, then we could do that first.
Yeah,
Okay, so we might cover this after coffee break as well, but just to let everybody know that we're holding an animal coronavirus meeting in May of next year on the 25th and 26th of May, Queen's University, Belfast. So it will focus on livestock, companion animals and wildlife. So there'll be 3 science sessions, and then in the afternoon of the second day, we're going to hold 3 workshops, and Valeria and I are trying to work those out at the moment. but they will be aimed at 3 topics in relation to gap analyses and roadmaps. So we are developing those, and we invite you all to participate in those in the meeting in May next year. So these contribution to these gap analyses and roadmaps was a key deliverable for our UK-ICN project funded by BBSRC and DEFRA, who are both involved funders in STAR IDAZ. So it's very important that we get all of our members to contribute to that in May. Thanks.
Thanks, Sharon. So anyone, any comments, questions in that area for Valeria specifically? No? Okay, thank you very much. So I'd like to thank this afternoon's 2 speakers for actually showing us A, how we can get money, and then B, influence policy to start applying for proposals and so on. For any of you who want to be PIs, this is actually how it works. You just have to write, and then at some point you can start influencing the things that you're trying to write for. So we're going to have a break now, and then we'll come back after the break to tell you about some future activities. But I also want you to think about what you would like from the network, and whether you would like to host your own particular meeting in the coronavirus space. So let's go and have tea, coffee and cake. Hopefully it's cake.